Shahao's expression became unpleasant. He truly never expected to see it here. Back then, when he was leaving Five Elements Province through Origin Sky Secret Realm, the Devil Blood Ghost Tree had said before that there were three things that were the most frightening when moving through the void. One of them was precisely this black-colored ancient ship. Since the ancient times, of the millions of creatures, there weren't many who had seen it. Those that encountered it would inevitably die. Even the most powerful old sect masters wouldn't be able to survive. Rumor had it that as long as a creature got on this boat, they never returned alive. Shahao never expected that, while searching for the origin of the strangeness and arriving before this great crack, he would see this ship. It hadn't appeared many times in this world since the ancient times. If it was just a look from the distance, then that was one thing, but now, they were so close, able to feel the pressure. Shahao, what happened? Are you all right? Qingyi called out from behind. When she saw how he had become petrified, standing there unmoving, she revealed a doubtful expression. Don't ask anymore, just hurry and leave. Shahao transmitted mentally, having them quickly depart from this place, the further the better. Those individuals were all incredibly confused, but they didn't doubt the severity of his voice. They could only open their mouths, but in the end retreat to the 3,000 paths. They now stood on the bluestone paths, quite far away. The black-colored crack was enormous, wide like the mouth of a prehistoric beast. It was truly frightening. Shahao stood there alone, his body taut, as if he was in the most nervous state of his life. This ship was too large, several tens of thousands of li long, the black-colored ship body appearing ancient, giving off a strange and miserable feeling. It was unknown how many years it had existed for. That blood was horrifyingly dark red. As time washed through this place, the years went by. It never dried up, still shining with luster as it was painted over the black-colored ancient boat. Just what kind of background did it have exactly? What era did it come from? There was simply nothing to use as a reference, no one knowing for sure, only knowing that this was one of the world's most terrifying ancient objects. Shahao forcefully withstood the pressure, trying to struggle free from the force, but he discovered that compared to this ancient black ship, his own power was nothing. Could this be the very source of the ominous event? He was a bit frightened. The enormous attraction force increased, traveling over from the distance. It made even the void cracks distort. Shahao couldn't take it any longer, dragged in by this enormous black ship, one of the most sinister things from past to present. When his legs left the ground, he once again transmitted sound to Qingyi, Cao Yuxing and the others not to come, that they had to stay far away. Then, like a shooting star, he rushed towards that ancient boat. That wave of power was too great, binding him as it dragged him over. The void was spacious and empty, vast and boundless. Then, Shahao opened his heavenly eye, the silver-colored symbols forming within his pupils. Then, golden patterns appeared, glistening and bright as he surveyed the entire great ship. Suddenly, his eyes felt a great pain. The scarlet multicolored light that appeared made his pupils feel as if he was going to be burnt blind. That was an expanse of blood. Several hundred li from this place, there was bright red blood on the black-colored ancient ship covering the ship's planks. They contained ancient and mysterious symbols that could injure the heavenly eye. Shahao felt a wave of chilliness. What kind of creature did that blood belong to not dry after all this time and still have this type of fluctuation, this type of life force and symbols? He couldn't even look at it. There was a strange power to it. There was a lot of this blood scattered all over this ship. There was a layer of mysterious power to it. Shahao couldn't leave the ancient ship. As long as he rushed towards the sky, he would be pulled back. However, he could walk on the deck of the ship normally, even if Sectmaster level experts came, they still never returned to the world. Could it be because of this, that they couldn't leave the ancient ship, ultimately dying here in meditation? Shahao thought of something. He walked forward, closing in on an expanse of blood. Sure enough, when he walked 100 li, he ran into it. If he didn't use the heavenly eye, then he would only see a dark red color, able to look directly at it. Once symbols appeared in his eyes, it would instead hurt him. This was not only reflected in the heavenly eye. When he tried to transfer power, releasing a streak of bone text from his fingertips, it would bring him incredible pain, as if he was being cut by a blade. He had previously seen immortal blood, it was holy and divine, but not like this. It was definitely different from the blood before him. This blood was extremely domineering, hard to even approach. What terrifying blood. He really wanted to get some to research, figure out what exactly it was, what kind of symbols it contained, but in the end, he still gave up. He felt like this kind of blood could kill creatures even more powerful than him. If he acted rashly, then he might very well die. In that instant, Shahal became horrified. Through those holes and marks, there was shocking killing energy surging, making him feel a type of tyrannical aura and battle intent. That was definitely left behind by a powerful individual. Their battle traces still haven't disappeared, continuing to release an unimaginable aura that crossed space-time. Shahal's flame silently appeared, the symbols flickering. Like a mirror, it flickered about here, illuminating all of the traces. Shahal was shocked, but he remained silent, quietly watching everything. Soon after, the mysterious flame returned to his body, thus disappearing. Shahal continued on his way again, walking forward. Either way, there was no way to leave. He was already on the black ancient boat, so he went for broke, wishing to see exactly what there was here. After walking for several hundred li, he saw an ancient artifact that was similar in material to the body of the ship. It was like metal, but was also like strange ancient wood, pitch black like ink. It was carved into a water jar-like object, towering here like a mountain. Golden light surged within, the light fluctuations it released astonishing. What kind of thing was this? Shahal walked a circle around it, feeling like this truly was like a water jar, just like the ones large ships that set out for sea use to get rid of rain. He became more and more confused. What was the use of this water jar? Where was this ancient boat headed? It was so powerful and intimidating. Did it really need to use this jar to get rid of rain? Shahal did everything he could, releasing his divine senses to explore what was inside the water jar. His flesh couldn't leave the ground, unable to fly, but his divine senses could. However, when it left a certain distance, it would bring him quite a bit of pain as well, the feeling similar to being cut by a blade. He endured this pain. His divine senses climbed up the mountainous water jar and then looked inside. He was immediately shocked. It was a whole jar of blood, but it was golden and there were symbols inside. It was as if a lake was rising and falling. It was extremely astonishing, heavens. Shahal couldn't help but cry out. What creature's blood was this, actually using such a large water jar to hold it? It was too shocking. Moreover, the vessels used to collect rain were carrying this kind of blood, so what kind of skies would release this kind of rain? Shahal's mind's imagination immediately ran wild, his mind now feeling extremely uneasy. If he tried to make simple comparisons, it really was too terrifying. He walked another several thousand li, seeing too many terrifying places. Soon after, he even discovered a broken horn that was as large as a small mountain. It was entirely sparkling and translucent. Only, it was sticky with blood as it laid there. This horn's shape was extremely astonishing, like a deer horn, but also like the broken horn of a true dragon. What kind of place did I end up in exactly? Shahal asked himself. The things he saw along the way were just too astonishing. Even though he couldn't verify what exactly they were, he felt that they were exceptionally extraordinary. A dragon horn dyed with blood, sparkling and translucent. He could feel an intimidating energy as soon as he approached, as if it was going to cut apart his soul. Shahal's eyes were fervent with desire. If it was a dragon horn, and he brought it away with him, how shocking would its worth be? However, he had no way of getting close to it. Even though that horn fell off, it was still full of life force. Symbols swirled about it on its own, able to kill all those who it made contact with. Shahal could only stare helplessly at this supreme treasure, without the slightest means of doing anything to it. This thing was too formidable. Based on his speculations, if this horn was left behind by a pure-blooded true dragon, once it was refined into a precious artifact, it would become one of the higher realm's greatest weapons, something simply impossible to appraise. After pacing back and forth for a long time, he could only leave in the end. I really am unwilling to give up here, even though he was in a dangerous place with ominous things possibly thrown at him at any moment. Shahal still felt like this, looking back 3 times towards that horn with every step. Suddenly, he saw something else. It was a scale. This thing was sticky with blood, and symbols were fluctuating intensely about. It was golden in color, a foot or so in length. There were many strange patterns on its surface, forming an ancient symbol. It looked quite like the character Defy. Was it related to that dragon? Shahal stared at it, hesitating again. He similarly couldn't approach this scale. However, what was unexpected was that the flame in his body unexpectedly rushed out, landing on that scale and burning about, acquiring a bit of golden light and devouring it. What was it doing? Shahal was confused. Soon after, the mysterious flame flew up, returning to his body. Meanwhile, that scale's powerful symbol fluctuations already disappeared, becoming simple and unadorned. It was a glistening yellow, the resplendent golden light now withdrawn, giving it a type of profound appearance. It now lacked a bit of magnificence, as if it had just experienced the baptism of time. The killing energy disappeared. Shahao was shocked. This type of feeling wouldn't be wrong. He reached out his divine senses and carefully closed in, discovering that he wasn't injured. Then, he released bone texts, using precious techniques to seize it. There were no negative consequences to this action either. He quickly picked it up, discovering that this scale was 100,000 jin by itself, quite absurd. It was heavy beyond imagination. If I can return alive, I should go ask Dragon Girl if this really is a dragon scale, he said to himself. Along the way, he saw many sinister things, some extremely terrifying, others with astonishing value. However, he had no way of approaching and bringing away any of them. All too suddenly, Shahao discovered that he had traveled through over 10,000 li, already closing in on the hold of this ancient ship. Outside of this ship hold was an altar that was entirely pitch black, its surface carrying many ancient engravings. Those patterns were all extremely profound, and they were also covered in blade and sword marks, so it was clear that a battle had happened here before. The flame within him took action again, illuminating all of them. Shahao followed the enormous stairs, continuously climbing up this black altar that was even larger than a mountain. At the top of this black-colored altar was a pond that caved inward. There was unexpectedly 5-colored liquid inside that looked like jade liquid, sparkling and translucent. Resplendent multicolored light was being released as well. This is also blood. Shahao shivered inwardly. After carefully observing it, he confirmed that it was. Was this being used as a sacrifice? This type of blood was definitely strange. He felt an immeasurable power from it just by looking at it. Shahao felt like this blood was even more formidable than the dark red blood, and it carried biting cold killing intent. The things here are all powerful, filled with killing intent, as if they all came from a battlefield. Could it be some type of illusion? He didn't dare use his heavenly eye, fearing that the movement of their symbols would arouse the killing intent within this 5-colored blood. He could sense a strangeness just by looking at it normally. This altar unexpectedly produced a rumbling sound. The 5-colored liquid released a shocking scene, and there were even vague sounds. He carefully observed it, his mind extremely concentrated. That wasn't an illusion. It was becoming more and more distinct. Kill. Suddenly, he heard war shouts. That 5-colored blood released great waves, rising and falling like vast bodies of water. The blurry scene inside slowly appeared. That was an enormous ancient city, as well as a boundless battlefield. Shouts of war shook the heavens. The experts, they could all destroy stars and capture moons, all of them ridiculously powerful. That city was incomparably steady, stretching across the wilderness, inconceivably large, as if it was a world of its own. That battle displayed the greatest divine power fluctuations. There were symbols that surged, making quite a few of the stars in the sky fall. That type of battle was too vicious, simply unimaginable. Desolate border, is that the desolate border? Where is it? The day will come when I will slaughter my way over there. Shahao clenched his fists. The 5-colored blood shone, the scene inside gradually becoming blurry. He could vaguely see a scene. One of the 7 great kings fell, all of the stars dimming in response. We are fighting, separated by heaven and earth, but we can't hold on. What about those who come later? The contract, those were the voices of the 6 great kings, who were still alive. Their enormous figures were sticky with blood, riddled with stars. They were supporting each other, appearing extremely sad under the setting sun. Shahao's nose felt sore, and his eyes a bit blurry as he watched one of the kings fall. He felt great grief inside, truly wishing he could help them in some way. Where are you all? Where is the desolate border? His voice was trembling. Contract. Could it be the archaic contract? He thought of the contract he heard from the celestial clan, wondering if they were the same thing. After a final tremble, the altar's great waves receded, and Shahao also saw a final scene on the lake surface. A black-colored ancient ship was crossing the desolate border, carrying blood with it as it entered the great void crack. This ship. Shahao was shaken up, his mind heavy. Was this the source of the ominous and inauspicious? This boat's origins were shocking. Was its appearance here good or bad? There was no longer any activity. He got down from the altar and silently thought for a bit. Then, he walked towards the inside of the ship hold. This ship was too large, making him feel like an ant walking inside of a grand palace. Only, this place was pitch black with a heavy fog. The grey fog pervaded from within, carrying ominous and inauspicious things. Since I can't leave anyway, I might as well explore to its end. Shahao decided he would just risk it all. It was rumored that the people who ended up on this boat all died, no way they could leave it alive. There was no worse conclusion already, so there wasn't anything to be scared of at this point. Of course, the only hope was the flame within his body. Aside from this, there were memorial tablets with ancient words carved atop, words he didn't even recognize. When he slightly probed out with his divine senses, Dao sounds rumbled, and then he understood the meaning of those characters. It was just too ancient, the words different from those of the present world. Great Scarlet Sky Lord, Qing Wei Lord, Yu Lord. Shahao sucked in a breath of cold air. What kind of place did he arrive at, to actually see such strange and terrifying scenes? It made his scalp go numb. Great Scarlet Sky Lord, Qing Wei Lord, who were these people? They were immortals. Even now, there was still a Scarlet Sky Flame, Yu Flame, and others in the world, immortal seeds that they left behind, yet right now, he actually reached this place, seeing their memorial tablets. Of course, this wasn't the most terrifying thing. What truly left Shahao horrified was the head in front of the memorial tablet. It was sticky with sparkling blood, not withering away yet. Could it be that these heads belonged to Great Scarlet Sky Lord, Qing Wei Lord, Yu Lord, and figures like these? Shahao's fine hairs immediately stood on end, feeling that this was inconceivable. A weak light flickered. The heads and memorial tablets on the long jade table all disappeared. That stone cauldron released a vague flicker. Shahao's mind was shaken. Was this an illusion, or was it a reflection of what was inside the stone cauldron? He stared at that cauldron. Even though there was a lid on it, as well as an unmatched seal, there were still strands of multicolored light seeping out. Apart from this, the cauldron was covered with cracks, already splitting apart, ready to shatter at any moment. Ever since he arrived on this ancient ship, everything he saw was outrageous, especially this place, which was even more frightening. Shahao stared at the stone cauldron, feeling a bone-chilling coldness. It wasn't the temperature that decreased, but a coldness that originated from his heart. How could it be like this? This place was inconceivable, actually having these types of thing. Shahao had never felt so frightened since the day he left the village. The scenes he saw here were too frightening, exceeding his imagination. That long table disappeared. He suspected that it might be because they were too extraordinary, and that was why they could appear through the seal of the stone cauldron. Could it be that there was an entire cauldron full of heads? This was too shocking. Those names, the memorial tablets, the heads sticky with sparkling blood, if news of this got out, it would definitely shock the world. Yu Lord, Great Scarlet Sky Lord, who would believe that their heads were all inside of a cauldron? It was too shocking, shaking both past and present. These mountains and rivers were dusky. Shahao walked forward step by step, closing in on those enormous broken mountains. He wanted to see the stone cauldron at the foot of the mountain from a bit closer. There were too many skeletal remains along the way, all of them carrying the aura of past time. They covered the ground. There were some corpses that hadn't been damaged after all this time, currently releasing sinister fluctuations. Shahao tried to touch them, but those remains immediately released terrifying symbols and bone texts. One could imagine how powerful these individuals were when they were alive. They were definitely unmatched experts. This ancient ground was extremely massive. However, calling it a battlefield wasn't quite right. There were ancient corpses all over the ground, some carrying chaotic energy, some releasing mysterious symbols. There were some that had clearly decayed as well. When he accidentally stepped on some of them, the flesh rotted, some directly turning into dust. Shahao tried to pick up a few weapons, but he discovered that not a single one was intact. If they weren't broken, then they had long been destroyed by the endless passage of time. What he obtained were all broken spears and tattered pieces of armor, to the extent where they lost all divinity and completely decayed, already couldn't be considered as any divine materials. An endless amount of time had passed after all. Unless they were unmatched supreme treasures, since they were broken to begin with, there was naturally no way for them to remain forever. What kind of creature is this? He saw a mountainous freak that looked like a hedgehog. However, its neck was extremely long, and its head was even more like that of a true dragon. In addition, there was a pair of golden divine wings that hadn't rotten even now. This thing was incredibly formidable. Shahao felt as if his skin was in sharp pain from even far away. The golden divine thorns seemed like they could shatter the void. Immortal ancients' creatures were quite different from those of the current world. Shahao walked quite far. The ancient creatures he saw all having their own unique characteristics. Silent and without any news, the eyes of an ancient corpse behind him shone with green light. Its body carried grey mists, and like a civet, it quietly pounced over. Meanwhile, at this time, he wasn't that far from the broken mountain, able to clearly see the enormous stone cauldron. It is actually world stone. Shahao was shocked. He saw the material this cauldron was made of, unexpectedly an unmatched legendary material, the rough material for natural supreme treasures. It was truly too shocking. Just a small piece of this thing would make great sect masters fight to the death. However, there was such a large chunk here, forming a completely intact cauldron. It was clear that there were no other materials mixed in. It was precisely this sturdy precious material that was covered in cracks, as if it would break apart at any time. It was hard to imagine what kind of power led to this kind of damage. The cauldron was extremely simple and unadorned, suffused with chaotic energy. Even though the top of the cauldron was sealed, there were strands of auspicious multicolored light seeping out, as well as grey and black fog pervading outwards. Shahao released a sigh. The value of this cauldron was too great. Who would think that this cauldron that was releasing auspicious multicolored light might be full of heads? How was it created back then? Who was the one that acted so extravagantly? Aside from this, he was also a bit horrified to find that there were strands of grey mists and black energy inside the auspicious multicolored light, seeping out from the seal. It made one shiver inwardly from dread. It was because he sensed a familiar aura, the same as the ominous and inauspicious that had appeared. They were definitely from the same source. Don't tell me that the origin of the strangeness is this cauldron, Shahao said quietly, his expression grave. He carefully walked around this cauldron. The most worrying thing was that the cracks covering this cauldron were also releasing wisps of grey fog. It truly was about to break apart. A great ancient cauldron made out of world stone, this was definitely a supreme treasure. Were these cracks caused by external attacks, or because the things sealed inside were too powerful? Once it broke, what kind of terrifying result would there be exactly? Shahao's expression became grave. He stood in front of the cauldron, thinking silently to himself, bestow upon you undecaying, uncover the seal. Suddenly an indistinct and weak fluctuation transmitted outwards. That was the sound of a divine will. It was unexpectedly hard to differentiate, strange and horrifying. Shahao broke out into a cold shiver. In this place of death, there was actually this type of calling. It made one shiver inwardly. The stone cauldron covered in cracks swayed, releasing divine light. The grey mist and black energy intertwined, becoming much darker. Then, the voice disappeared along with it. It was extremely haunting. Shahao backed up, his expression extremely grave. It had already been how many tens of thousands of years, perhaps an eternity past, yet there were still wills inside this cauldron. It left him terrified. Was this cauldron filled with heads, or other things? Suddenly, Shahao felt a wave of warmth, his surroundings becoming peaceful. The murkiness scattered, and an expanse of light appeared, rushing forward. It was like a ripple, and also like stellar light. Even though it wasn't all that grand and resplendent when compared to this entire ancient land, it was still enough to illuminate the surroundings, eliminating some of the darkness. Shahao's mind trembled. Everything was created by the light within his body. It already flew out, turning into an ancient mirror, reflecting all things here. It reflected all of the scenery and combat traces of this place with its mirror surface, and then it even wound about that stone cauldron, truly displaying everything. A heavy muffled sound rang through the air. This entire region began to shake, the black ancient boat itself swaying. Even that sphere of light was shaking. It spun around this place, and then returned to Shahao's body. Suddenly, an indistinct roar sounded from behind the broken mountains, making one's scalp turn numb and their bodies shiver with coldness. It was as if a malicious spirit was blowing cold air on the back of his neck. What kind of thing is there in the very depths of this place? Shahao stopped here for a while, and then he walked forward. Either way, he couldn't leave, possibly dying here, so he might as well just continue exploring. The broken mountains were massive. He made his way around it, heading forward. The chaotic energy in front of him was misty and indistinct. This was an even more vast ancient land, with more corpses, broken weapons, and shattered bone artifacts. This was still the hold of the ship, but it didn't seem like one at all, instead like a boundless world. After who knew how much time had passed, Shahao felt as if he arrived at the edge of this world. Up ahead, the road ended, with no place further to walk to. He had reached its end. What is over there? Shahao looked forward, his heart shaking. There were even more tattered pagoda fragments that pierced into his head. It was hard to imagine just what kind of miserable and terrifying great battles he had experienced. He was riddled with wounds, blood dyeing his battle clothes. The bright red blood still hadn't dried up even now, but his body was already ice cold without any trace of life. It was because his injuries were too severe. Those terrifying supreme precious artifacts, any one of them could pierce through the heavens. However, they were all broken now, inserted into his body. It was enough to erase all life force. This was a seal that he placed before his death, sealing this place. I've returned, however, my strength has already been exhausted. A wave of emotions swept outwards. This was regret, left behind before his death, broke through the desolate border, familiar homeland overtook sealed. The will that remained was intermittent. This was all that was still here. Shahal felt a wave of sadness for this king. He defended the desolate border, not shrinking back this entire time, using his life and blood to fight back. The reason why he broke through the desolate border and returned was to chase after something, and then seal it. In the end, he actually died like this. It was a truly tragic scene, guarding this place even while at death's door, sealing up this abyss. It was clear that this king provided endless contributions, however, no one would know about everything he did. Within this ice-cold, dark void, he died all alone. No one knew, no one to send him off. No one in the world knew that there was a person like this who offered his life to stop this darkness. The things he did would shake up all 3,000 provinces of the higher realms, yet his descendants were treated like descendants with sinners' blood. His corpse rested here, drifting along the void's great crack along with this ancient boat, ice-cold and bleak. Senior, take care. Shahal was filled with complex emotions, feeling sorrow for this king. His descendants were treated as if they had sinners' blood, being treated as sinners. It was truly a mournful thing. Such a powerful figure, fighting at the desolate border, blood-soaked while fighting, using his life to protect the world beyond, yet his descendants fell to this kind of state. I also have the blood of sinners flowing through me, ha. Shahal couldn't help but laugh out loud, feeling both anger and grief. This king might very well be his ancestor. If I can break free, there will definitely be a day when I will visit the desolate border and participate in the battle. Shahal vowed. He clenched his fists. If the day came when he could stand at the top of the divine Tao, he had to flatten the disorder, suppress all enemies in the desolate border. Even if there were undying things, even if there were unimaginable unmatched figures, he still had to head there and slaughter his way into that realm. The symbol in the space between his brows shone, holy light surging into the sky, rushing through the murkiness. The beam of light shot into the heavens. In that abyss, the ice-cold corpse of the king that was sitting silently and unmovingly had some type of reaction. His forehead also shone, scattering the darkness. Shahal's body trembled. The symbol in his forehead was resonating, as it encountered someone of the same bloodline, and was unwilling to part. There was a type of sadness. Suddenly, the enormous corpse that suppressed the abyss released a streak of resplendent light, and upon closer inspection, it was precisely the sin character. It entered Shahal's sin character patterns. Shahal's body immediately staggered, his forehead bone feeling hot, as if it was going to burn. Immediately afterwards, the space between his brows became even more resplendent, the radiance illuminating heaven and earth. Those patterns were interweaving, complex and profound. The sin character was as clear as if it were metal or silver strokes, making the blood in Shahal's body surge and roil like a sea. In that instant, his body became comfortably warm. In this dangerous place, he no longer felt ice-cold while facing the grey mists and black fog, not feeling any more fear. When everything calmed down, that corpse became quiet and unmoving again. Suddenly, ancient lamps appeared silently, one after another, suspending in the void. Meanwhile, thunderous sounds rang from the abyss below, attacking at the seal. Strand after strand of grey and black mist seeped out from the seal. It's not sturdy any longer. Shahal's expression changed, and he saw something extremely bad. His heart immediately became cold. The king that was sitting there, half of his enormous body was dyed pitch black like ink, as if he became a demonic ancestor. It made one's heart tremble. The black fog surrounded him, wishing to infect his entire body. However, each time it reached his forehead, it would always be blasted apart by a streak of flowing light. Even though he was already dead, the sin character was still there, still shining. Not good. There will be a day when the seal will break. When that day comes, the ominous and strange things will invade the great earth. That will definitely be a great disaster. Shahal said with a sigh. However, he couldn't be bothered to worry about that right now. In the distance, juju sounds of ghosts wailing rose and fell. On the mountains at the other end of the horizon, all of them became pitch black like ink, releasing strange mists. Every single mountain had an enormous lantern that shone. They were scarlet like blood, lighting up the skies. He saw a group of young individuals numbering in the dozens, standing there proudly, their expressions indifferent. They were all staring deathly at him. They are all people from this era, some of them from the ancient era, some from the recent few thousand years. Shahao was shocked. Dozens of people walked over, their terrifying auras overflowing into the sky. With all of them grouped up together like this, the scene was extremely terrifying. These were young supreme beings, all of them with an unmatched Tao. Hiss. Shahao sucked in a cold breath of air. Could it be that these were all ancient outstanding heroes who ultimately encountered ominous events? Not only were their precious techniques seized, even their bodies were brought to this place. If this was true, then it was a truly horrifying thing. He looked even further out, and then he immediately felt despair. There were a few middle-aged individuals in the mountains with auras even more terrifying. They all had unyielding spirits, believing themselves to be unmatched. Those were individuals with even higher cultivation realms. They similarly had outstanding reputations in their eras. If they were to come over as well, how was he supposed to fight? He would undoubtedly be killed. Trial slaughter stealing techniques, sinister disasters. There were fluctuation coming from the abyss. That corpse seemed to be reacting to this type of scene. A roar sounded. The endless ancient corpses stopped their restlessness, no longer attacking. Over 100 blood-red lamps appeared, illuminating this place. Some of those several dozen young experts began to walk forward. The most dazzling creatures were about to take action, all of them at the consummate level of the divine flame realm, kill. This was a cruel great battle. Shahao had to face this group of inconceivably powerful enemies. This was especially true since the strand of immortal energy couldn't be used freely yet. Shahao decided that he might as well not use it. He brandished the two halberds to fight them all. Soon after, he already killed 2 individuals. However, he himself was injured as well, blood flowing from his body. The most terrifying strike almost pierced through his heart. How formidable. Shahao was shocked. That person's power was extremely great, his flesh unexpectedly not weaker than his own. He carefully looked at this creature. It was a golden being with a human body and an ant head, its strength boundless. Could that be the well-known golden ant from 20,000 years ago? Shahao's mind trembled. He had also heard about a few ancient and formidable figures, feeling that this ant should be it. However, regardless, he wouldn't stop here. Even if he died, he would die in battle. Moreover, it was just a sword core, and not completely refined to perfection, yet it was already like this. It was a bit ridiculous. Even a divine treasure like the void halberd was broken. This sword is truly extraordinary. Shahao speculated. It should be some type of immortal gold. It was still just a sword core, yet it was so powerful. Shahao moved, his speed as fast as lightning. He rushed at that individual. He attacked that sword core with precious techniques, releasing dang-dang sounds. Blood blossomed. There were many young experts around Shahao, all of them exceptional. They took action together, immediately adding many injuries onto his body. Meanwhile, that youngster who held the mysterious sword core was even more terrifying. The sword didn't leave Shahao's vital areas, and one strike even drew blood. Of course, Shahao also returned a strike, slamming his palm against his body, blasting him backwards, blood flowing out from his mouth. So powerful. What kind of ancient being is this? Shahao's expression was grave. He entered a situation of imminent death. Aside from the one who held that sword and the golden ant, the others were also extremely terrifying. He killed a few of them, but the situation was getting more and more dangerous. Soon after, Shahao was seriously injured. Even though he had long propped up his only heavenly passage, it still directly caved in under an attack. These creatures took action together. No young experts of the present generation could face them. Under the metallic sounds, Shahao smashed away the sword core, but he also took a strike from the sword. A terrifying cut was opened on his chest. He sent that sword-using creature flying, seizing this sword. However, because of this, he paid a tremendous price, almost dying on the spot. Sword light overflowed outwards. Shahao brandished it about, adding his own precious techniques on top of it, directly removing the heads of 2 people around him. His divine energy erupted. However, at this moment, strange changes took place. The abyss released woo-woo sounds. There was a strange power that crushed down onto him. Meanwhile, that king's corpse shone, suppressing the abyss, and at the same time releasing an extremely gentle power towards this direction, surrounding Shahao within. The gentle power supported him. It was extremely warm. Even the injuries on Shahao's body were lightened. However, the black energy below the abyss surged, attacking intensely at the seal, making the seated king's body sway. The seal might be torn apart. A black streak of light swept outwards, landing on Shahao's body, originating from the abyss. Shahao knew that after he continuously attacked, killing a few powerful strange corpses, the ominous couldn't tolerate him being alive. Fortunately, this king's radiance surrounded him. In the abyss below, a strange howling sound rang through the air, one that was many times more horrifying than that of the malicious spirits. Even as a cultivator, Shahao still felt scared, cold energy seeping into his body through his pores, not good. Shahao was frightened. Not only were these young powerful experts at his level attacking, even those in the distance moved. Those middle-aged men were like enormous mountains, all of them with their own dominating auras. After hearing the roar from the abyss, they began to walk in this direction. These people were too powerful, unknown what kind of cultivation realms they were at exactly. One of them pointed out, and then the voice directly shattered, erasing everything in its way as it rushed here. Shahao's mind was shaken. Even though he was surrounded by that king's gentle radiance, he still quickly moved out of the way. That finger was too large. It crushed downwards, creating a huge valley in the great earth. Rubble rushed into the clouds. What kind of cultivation realm is this? Heavenly deity, or sect master level? Shahao felt that if he didn't have that king's radiance wrapped around him, the powerful fluctuations would have been difficult for him to endure. There were middle-aged men who walked over from all sides, their eyes giving off an ancient feeling, clearly having experienced endless time. However, there was also a type of deathly grey color. They were scattered in different areas, cutting off all routes of escape. Meanwhile, those several dozen young supreme beings also moved, activating precious techniques, and bringing out precious artifacts, slaughtering their way over. Those middle-aged experts towered there. If anything unexpected happened, they were ready to attack at any time to suppress and kill Shahao. The abyss became chaotic. Natural law forces emerged from all directions, and all types of ancient lamps surged, continuously swaying about. Moreover, the corpses covering the mountains and plains stood up, gathering in this direction, kill. Those immeasurable middle-aged men roared and took action, the large hand one stretched out covering heaven and earth, smothering the sky to kill Shahao. It was clear that the strange and ominous saw that Shahao was surrounded by that king's light protection, and that was why they released such great destructive force. Geniuses at the same level could not keep him in check, so they were going to directly eliminate him. Ancient lamps flew out one after another to copy and reflect his precious techniques, stealing away all of them. The body of the king seated in the abyss shone. It was affected by the power from all sides. His unmatched flesh released resplendent radiance after being agitated, turning into ripples that scattered outwards. With a pu sound, the great hand that originally slapped towards Shahao was swept through by the ripple, breaking apart in midair. Large amounts of blood poured down like a river. Following a hong sound, that hand fell onto the ground, making the great earth cave in, creating a pitch-black valley. This scene left Shahao stupefied. The most terrifying thing was that the golden ripple shattered the large hands that were rushing at Shahao one after another, and those middle-aged experts broke apart inch after inch as well, turning into a bloody mist and burning into nothing. It was too terrifying. That type of power was too shocking. Shahao finally knew why this corpse could still suppress this place. It was because there were still unmatched symbols and divine force within his body, its power without equal. The darkness was split open, revealing a streak of divine light. The space between that king's brows shone, and the sin character burned, unexpectedly blasting open a path. Then, the flame within Shahao's body moved as well, surging and engulfing the heavens, burning all of the ancient lamps and the mist. In addition, it unexpectedly threw itself into the abyss, dancing about that king, burning away some of the black-colored areas around his body, forcing some of the strange and inauspicious that had infected his body to disappear. That flame returned, wrapping around Shahao and rushing into the passage that was pierced through, disappearing from this place. Outside the void, on the 3,000 bluestone path, Qingyi, Cao Yusheng, the little rabbit, and the divine striking stone were all quite worried. What exactly did that enormous black void crack contain? Shahao went inside for too long, not coming out all this time, moreover warning them that they couldn't get closer, to stay as far away as they could. It made them feel uneasy. That black-colored crack is closing. Cao Yusheng's expression changed. What do we do? Shahao didn't come out. Can it be that he is going to disappear from immortal ancient just like that? The divine striking stone felt anxious. Many creatures within the various small worlds could feel the abnormalities that were taking place. Not long ago, the intense fluctuations transmitted from the 3,000 bluestone paths were too intense. A few sensitive experts perceived something, already moving. Can it be that someone is trying to take that step, about to succeed? A few powerful creatures quickly rushed over, hurriedly arriving at the bluestone path. It was clear that more than one person felt this way. People from all directions sensed it. Finally, after some time had passed, his injury stabilized. At this time, he discovered that he could already freely operate that strand of immortal energy. The immortal energy entered his body, harmonizing with his flesh, lightening his suffering. He could also feel a wave of extremely powerful fighting strength. Only now did he release a breath of relief. He had to take some time to recover. He lowered his head, looking at the sword core in his hands. It wasn't that long, nor was it sharp. It was extremely simple and unadorned, dull and lightless, unremarkable in any way. After carefully inspecting it, there were unexpectedly patterns and scenes of ascension on the sword core, leaving him shocked. What kind of material was this? The sword core shouldn't have been fully refined, just a rough material. Its blade wasn't even polished, never turned into a perfect precious artifact. However, it already had these types of patterns. Everything before him became completely dark, because the great void crack closed. Shahao held the sword in his hand, hacking forward. With a kai sound, when he poured in divine force, the sword released the most resplendent light, immediately becoming extraordinary. This simple and ancient sword core was accompanied by a rain of light, unexpectedly shining 100 times more resplendent than a sun. There was no way to look directly at it. The void was hacked apart, and Shahao rushed out, falling on the ground. Aya, he appeared, returned. The little rabbit cried out in pleasant surprise, jumping up and down. It is good that he came back. Qingyi revealed a smile. Shahao fell onto the ground, his entire body dripping with blood. All of those injuries split apart again, and his left arm almost fell out again. The sword core in his hands became dim again, becoming simple looking once more, careful. Cao Yushin cried out loudly. Qingyi and the others' expressions changed as well. The divine striking stone even more so turned into a streak of light, shouting loudly, "Get lost." It was because a few figures appeared, taking action at the same time to attack Shahao. These were the experts who rushed out from the small worlds. Someone's eyes shone with incomparable greed, staring at the sword core in his hand. With a trembling voice, he said, "That sword of legends." Thank you for watching.